Hey, my name is Paul Maxwell, and today we're going to talk about why people get stuck in life and how to get out of that. I was stuck in life for a long time, and I did not know how to escape. And I felt like I had the willpower to do what I wanted. I had the mind and the will to do what I wanted, but I just couldn't make it a reality. And so today, what we're going to talk about are ways to get out of that place of feeling stuck. If you feel like you have the intelligence and you have the willpower to make your life the way you want it to be, but for some reason it's just not getting there, today we're going to break down kind of why that's not happening and ways to get there. So, in order to do that, we have to identify kind of a few terms that will help us explain or diagnose what's going wrong. And by diagnose, I don't mean medically or professionally diagnose. I mean more philosophically diagnose, right? Because probably what's happening is you have a vague sense of how you might want to get where you want to go, and you have a very specific sense of the life that you actually want to live. So you think about your future life and you think your financial situation, your relational situation, all these things you may have a lot of clarity on. If you don't, that's something you'll want to achieve too. And that's another video that I have. But right now, you may have this goal or this desire or this place you want to be in life, but how you get from here to there feels vague, right? So let's break this down. In order to do this, now the strategy action matrix has these elements to it where you've got X, and I'm going with my notes here a little bit, so don't mind me. X equals action. Okay. X equals action. Y equals strategy. Right? Where you've got strategy here, you've got action here. And here you've got low strategy. And here you've got low action, right? So ultimately, this is the place that you want to be, right? Ultimately, you want to be high strategy, high action, because this equals results. Again, I try not to use that term results, outcome. And we'll get to that more in a moment, right? But then what do you have here? Here, you have something very low leverage. Down in this area where you've got high action, low strategy, you've just got low leverage work. This is what I would call, uh, hustle culture, where it's all about grinding it out. You're on your grind, but you're not necessarily seeing the results. Okay. And then up here, you've got high strategy, low action, where you've got big ideas, man. And it's basically all talk, no walk. Okay. We'll call this ATNW syndrome. Okay. All talk, no walk. And that's where we are. And then finally you have this basically place down here where you've got no action and no strategy, but we're assuming you're on the board and you want to be somewhere. And this is a place that I would just call despair. Okay. Now, if you're watching this video, you're going to be either here, you're going to be here, or you're going to be in one of these other places. Now, the problem is you need to get to this place where you're in the top right quadrant, ideally as soon as possible, right? And so in order to do that, you can't just go right from here to here. Okay. That's not possible. It's not possible to go to right bypass and go right from low action right to high strategy. Okay. And you also can't go right from high strategy into high strategy, high action. That's also impossible. In order to do either of these things, you've got to go to every single quadrant first, and then you can get there. Okay. Now, before we talk about exactly how to do that, I want to introduce one more concept. Okay. Now, this concept Okay, we've got the strategy action matrix here. Okay, the strategy action flywheel is one where we actually identify what is going wrong in each of these frameworks here. Let's see. I am going to get this hand. All right. We actually identify what's going wrong in each of these places. So if I am here and I'm stuck in high action, low strategy, or I'm stuck in having these big ideas and no action, how do I have to solve this problem of how to get into this quadrant, right? And at the end of the day, this is where I want to be living here. So how do I get there? Well, we have to diagnose the problem of what's keeping us stuck in either big ideas or low leverage work, right? What is the fundamental constraint? And in order to understand that, it's important for us to understand the strategy action loop or the strategy action flywheel. Okay. So here's the strategy action flywheel. First, you've got strategy here. And I'm gonna break these components down, and you've got action over here. All right. You got strategy, you've got action. But this is actually part of a loop, because what you actually have are these two other components where you've got a plan and you've got a review. Okay. And all of these exist in a loop where you have a plan of action, you take action and then review the results. That review leads into strategy, and this strategy leads into a plan. Now, let's break this down into a set of components, okay? I want to break this down into a set of components because I want to know what exactly is strategy, what exactly is a plan, what exactly is action, and what exactly is review. Okay? So, a strategy is basically having a goal, which is a KPI, key performance indicator, some number. I want to make a certain amount of revenue. I want to lose a certain amount of weight. I want to be in a specific kind of relationship, that kind of thing. And then a method, right? This is the what. Let me actually just delete KPI because it's completely unnecessary. The goal is the what. The method is the how. Okay. Then I've got a plan. The plan is a set of actions happening at a specific time on my schedule. Okay. So the actions again are a what, and the schedule is a when. Right. Now, what are actions? Actions come down to compliance with the plan and consistency. Right. Now, compliance and consistency is basically conformity with the plan. So compliance just comes down to, am I doing the things when I'm planning to do them, right? Or rather, a better way to put this is compliance is doing the actions that I've planned. Consistency is coming through on the when that I've planned. Okay. And then a review is where we actually track our actions and measure our actions over time. This is progress, right? This is logging, right? So tracking is logging the method. So is this method actually working? And then the measurement is this goal something I'm actually becoming closer to, right? Over time. So this all is the relationship of these things. So when I go over here, and let me grab this little hand here. I wish there was a shortcut in Excalibur for this, but there's not. So let me go back to this thing here. So again, let me just write these things here so that now you can kind of see the relationship between these things, right? So now we say that the strategy is goal plus method. A plan is actions plus schedule. Or actually, you know what? I just want to put this way. I want to say a plan is scheduled actions. Actions are compliant. Compliance, it's behavior is what it is. That is compliance and consistent. And a review is making sure that I'm tracking, which is logging, and measuring, which is reviewing the meaning of those logs over time. Right. Now, here's where we can identify the blocks. Okay. Let's come all the way back here. Right. So now I want to say that each of these types, each of these problems, let's name them. Okay. Let's name them. We've got hustle. Let's call this guy hustle. Okay. So high action, low strategy is going to be called hustle. And high strategy, low action is going to be called, I don't know, big idea. Big ideas. Okay. So hustle, Mr. Hustle, and Mr. Big Ideas enter into this strategy action flywheel in two different ways, right? Because at the end of the day, what we want, again, before we talk about this, is that we want these logs to be going up, right? We want the outcome here ultimately to be successful. So the result, or ultimately what we want to do is we want this plan, these scheduled actions to lead to some kind of outcome, right? So at the heart of this is some KPI that equals an up arrow, right? Boom. That's an outcome. It's some measurement, right? We want an outcome equals that. And that's at the heart of all of this. Okay. Now, Mr. Hustle has this problem where he comes into the strategy action flywheel here. This is his blocker. So Mr. Hustle, his blocker is underthinking, right? He's just grinding it out and he's not seeing results. And he's wondering, why aren't I charging more? Why aren't I making more? Why aren't I getting into the place that I want to be? I'm doing all the right things. Constant complaints like this are, I'm working hard. I'm doing all the right things. And the mindset that's going to move this person, because gravity is going to pull. People don't stay in these places long. They come down. They come back down. Okay. So this is going to be fundamentally self-pity, right? So he's experiencing a decoupling for him, for Mr. Hustle. Effort does not equal outcome. And this baffles him. This is baffling to Mr. Hustle. Okay. So he's going to be naturally brought back to a place of despair. Now, Mr. Big Ideas, he's going to be thinking to himself, like, why can't I make my ideas work? And he's going to experience the disillusionment of intelligence does not equal outcome. And intelligence and effort combined don't equal outcome either. And so he's naturally going to be brought back to a place of despair. That's going to be tough for him. Okay. That's going to be tough. Both Mr. Big Ideas and Mr. Hustle are going to be brought back to a place of despair. So Mr. Hustle has a problem of underthinking. That's his problem. And he gets blocked here because he's not tracking and he's not measuring. All he's doing is he's saying, listen, all I can do is action, and I'm doubling down and I'm doubling down and I'm doubling down and I'm doubling down. But the bottleneck is here. This is the bottleneck. Action is the bottleneck. Action's where he's stuck. He's not actually progressing along the flywheel. He's stuck in action. So you can't achieve the results that you want, or you're very much less likely to achieve the results that you want if you are stuck in this bottleneck. Okay. So he's being blocked, completely blocked. Mr. Hustle is blocked between action and review. Okay. And then here we have the block for Mr. Big Ideas. All right. This is Mr. Big Ideas. And Mr. Big Ideas, obviously, is stuck in overthinking. And Mr. Big Ideas being stuck in overthinking means that his bottleneck is strategy. He's stuck in strategy. And at the end of the day, he does not make a real plan, which is a plan of scheduled action. He just can't do it. It's too close to reality. He's resistant to it. And he is stuck here. And neither of these people are moving along the flywheel, the strategy-action flywheel, and therefore they're not achieving results. Plan. Okay? Plan is ultimately the way that both of them get there. But the problem is, a plan alone doesn't get you there, right? A plan, let me just show you this here. A plan gets you to the door. So a plan gets you here. Plan gets you back to zero. Okay? And then you're starting here. And you've got to slowly move up to this place. Well, outcome, you don't just get an outcome by entering this place, okay? That's where most people think, oh, if I put a strategy together and I put a plan together and I put my boots on the ground and blah, 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 right? No, you have to increase action and you have to increase strategy, okay? And the way that you do that is through review, okay? This upward arrow here that we're trying to experience, okay? This is the strategy action flywheel. This is the flywheel, right? That we're just looking at over here. So we need to implement that flywheel. Plan is how you get to zero. And then over time, the more you put those scheduled actions into place, you set your goal, you have your scheduled actions, you are compliant and consistent with them, and you track and measure them, and then that goes in a loop, okay? And you say, okay, now I'm going to review my strategy. Should I review my goal? Should I review my method, right? So very naturally, again, all of this comes full circle, right? We want to say that our tracking revises our method, and our measuring tells us whether we're on track with our goal, right? Right. Our compliance is what we are tracking, and our consistency is what we are measuring. Okay. And these scheduled actions, the schedule is what we're being compliant with. Okay. This is the loop. This is the loop. This is the relationship. And so if you're stuck here, it's really simple. It's really simple. You got to identify what your bottleneck is. Okay. Are you here or are you here? All right. If you're stuck in overthinking, then what you need to do is you need to identify the strategy, and you need to create a strategy, and then you need to create a plan, and then you need to have your actions governed by a strategic plan. If you're stuck in overthinking, you need to make a plan and you need to be compliant with that plan and you need to track and measure it somewhere. Okay. The way that you do this is you have to have an interface. Whoops. You've got to have an interface equals where I look to know if it's working. Okay. And then you got to have your goal and method. This has to be written down. And then you have to have this needs to be a document. Okay. This also needs to be an interface, right? The key here is that you have a control surface. And here you have to have a calendar, right? And here you also have to have an interface, and you also have to have a tracking software. Habit Kit is a good one. Easy. Habit Kit. It's an app, something like that. And then for actions are where you track your compliance and your consistency, right? But you got to have a calendar. You've got to have an interface. You've got to have a control surface. The key here equals control surface, which equals visibility and trackability, where you have this document that's written down, which is your goals, which goes to your calendar, which goes to the actions, the control surface here, right? This would be gym, business, wherever you're actually doing the action. That would be the control surface of the action. So again, just to clarify all of this, action. So Mr. Hustle equals action and no strategy. Oh my gosh, killing me. All right. And then you've got Mr. Big Ideas equals all strategy, no action, right? And again, the bottlenecks here are overthinking and underthinking. And the solution to each of these things equals a plan plus tracking, which ultimately leads to the entry cost into the strategy action flywheel. So, I know that's a lot, right? Here, Mr. Hustle needs to enter the strategy action flywheel here. Okay. And Mr. Big Ideas needs to enter the strategy action flywheel here. It's that simple. And then what you need to do is keep the flywheel spinning. Okay. You need to keep it spinning. This is the key. All right. So I hope that was helpful. Again, these are the scribblings of a madman. I've never pretended that they're anything else. But this is the concept. Okay. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you're one of these things. And if you are Mr. Hustle or Mr. Big Ideas, you are going to be brought back into despair. If you're Mr. Big Ideas, you're going to be struggling to think, why can't I make my ideas work? And you're going to realize and be despaired by the fact that you realize intelligence does not equal outcome. If you're Mr. Hustle and you're all action and no strategy, you're going to be plagued by this thought of, I'm doing all the right things. Why can't I get what I want? And you're going to be slowly brought back into despair because you're going to realize effort does not equal outcome. What you need to do is is recognize that you're blocked on both levels, that the Mr. Hustle is blocked by underthinking, and he needs to ultimately break that by going into strategy. And Mr. Big Ideas is caught, he's stuck, he's blocked in this loop by overthinking. And what you need to do is enter into the strategy action flywheel, where the missing piece for both of them is a plan and a review. So what you ultimately have is you need to break through that. A strategy is a goal, which is a what, and a method for how to achieve that what. A plan are the scheduled actions from that method. The actions are the actual behaviors that occur in the domain of your goal, whether that's a business, a relationship, the gym, wherever, right? And you're tracking compliance with those scheduled actions and consistency of those scheduled actions over time. And then you review is where you track your compliance and consistency of those actions. And then you measure the progress of that KPI, of that goal over time, which feeds back into strategy. So the way you break out of being stuck inside Mr. Hustle or Mr. Big Ideas is you have to enter into this flywheel. Okay. And the way that you enter into this flywheel is you have all of these things going at once. You have to have a document that's written down, your goal and your method, a calendar interface where you have the scheduled actions from that method, actions where you actually come through with those scheduled actions, and a review that tells you, are these scheduled actions actually realizing my goal and method, or do I need to revise my goal and method so that the scheduled actions change, so that the actions become higher leverage? Okay. What this introduces into everything is impact. And here we've got leverage. Whoops. Awesome. Okay. Thanks so much, guys. This was a lot of fun. I hope that this is helpful to you. Hopefully the action steps for you to take here are really simple. Feel free to screenshot this. This is everything that we've talked about today. And best of luck to you as you seek to kind of realize your vision for your life. I hope that if you're stuck in one of these places, if you're Mr. Big Ideas or Mr. Hustle, just a warning to you, eventually you're going to be Mr. Despair. And the way that you get out of that is you create a plan and you create a way to review whether that plan is being successful or not. And you enter into the strategy action loop by introducing a plan and a review. And in order to do that, you have to create a document for your goal and method, which is your strategy. You have to schedule those things inside your calendar interface. And then you have to actually comply and be consistent with those things. But the only way you know if you're being compliant and consistent is if you're tracking that either in a spreadsheet or in an app like HabitKit. And once you do that, you will have a feedback loop so that at the end of the day, you're either going to have the gravity of despair pulling you into the lower left quadrant, or you are going to have the momentum and lift of the strategy action flywheel bringing you into the top right quadrant, where at the end of the day, what you have is in the top right quadrant, you have outcome, which again is key. And in the bottom left quadrant, you have stuck. So the idea is that the strategy action loop takes you from despair and stuck to outcome. Hope this was helpful. Hope you guys have a fantastic day.